years. Borky, you had a thought as it pertains to Ole Miss and kind of making a bit of a transition in camp.
Yeah, a passing thought yesterday or the day before. I think we need to expand on it a little bit. So Ole Miss has gone away from training camp mode, and they are now into game prep. I imagine basically everybody else is doing the exact same, being 9 days away from kickoff. But for the sake of this conversation, Ole Miss no longer in training camp. Practices are no longer open to anybody until probably the spring. As of now, they have not named a quarterback. And because of that, people are speculating and, taking Kiffin at his word of it's too close, I'm not ready to name a guy, all this stuff. Which is entirely possibly true. I would believe it if you told me that that was the 100% truth. But also we have precedent. We talked about it in 2020. There was a competition, air quotes, between John Rice Plumlee and Matt Corral. And even Cole Kubelik, who I deeply respect and think he's the best, if not, or one of the best, if not the best in the business, came on this show and was talking about Plumlee and Kiffin's offense. He had no idea that there was no competition at all, and the guy you're talking about is not going to be the quarterback. However, on game week, when they released the depth chart, which we'll get on Monday, there was an or. It was John Rice Plumlee or Matt Corral. No starter was even named until Matt Corral took the field for the first time against Florida. So with that being the backdrop, now that camp is over, are you surprised they haven't named a starter? They have not named a starter yet. Should you have expected them to begin with, considering precedent? Where do you sit in all of this with 9 days out?
I'm not surprised that they haven't named a starter. Lane Kiffin is, generally speaking, not big on giving information that he doesn't have to give. And when you don't have a returning starting quarterback, that is an opportunity for you to not give information that you don't have to give. I don't know this, but I feel like it's more complex. If Lane Kiffin, coming out of spring, had named either Jackson Dart or Luke Altmaier his starting quarterback, I don't know that you would have seen both of those guys in Oxford when camp began in August. If a week or two into camp, after camp starts, transferring to another school is rare. And I have no idea. And there's no way to know, right? For you or me or Brian Haydad or Ole Miss fans or anybody else, what the future holds for whoever is not named the starting quarterback. And just because of what happens in week 1 or 2 or 5 doesn't necessarily make you know what it's going to look like at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I refuse, when talking hypothetically about injuries, to use anybody's name. So let's just say that quarterback A wins the starting job and quarterback B is frustrated, but keeps his head up, keeps doing the practice stuff, good teammate, and isn't sure what he's going to do next year. But in game 4 or game 5, one of two things happens. Either the guy they chose to be the starter is not very good, and you continue to get better, and you get an opportunity, or there's an injury that is significant, and it necessitates quarterback B becoming the starter. And depending on how that goes, that changes completely what the offseason looks like. So, no, I'm not surprised that Lane Kiffin hasn't named a quarterback. I think there's a part of me, maybe a part of you, that if you are a fan of Ole Miss, you go, man, I wish one of them had been so stinking good that there was no question who the starter was going to be. That it was, this is the starter, and I'll shout it from the mountaintops and go ahead and print the bumper stickers because he's going to be a Heisman candidate.
You know what's kind of funny is fans want to know the starter, right? They want to know who it is. You can have a QB battle where they're both really good, and fans are still like, but I want to know who the starter is. It's not like, God, they've both been terrible and we can't decide. It's they're both really good, and we haven't come to our decision yet. Fans don't want that, though. They want to know the name. They want to know what jersey to buy.
They're doing game prep, though. See, that's why I asked the question, and Pat / Dale from the Delta saying that it sounds like they're closer. And I would honestly, I wouldn't argue against that. It actually does sound like that. I mean, the talent gap between Plumlee and Corral was very significant. I don't think the talent gap exists between these two guys, so it's conceivable that it's much closer. But if they're actually doing game week prep now, they still splitting reps at one? If they are, I think that's a bit of an issue. But I don't think they are.
I don't think it is a bit of an issue right now because of the way the schedule sets up. It's okay to split reps at one when your first two games are Troy and UCA, and frankly, when your third and fourth games are Georgia Tech and Tulsa. Now, you better be building toward being ready to go on October 1st. And you better not have a slip-up in those first four games. Lane Kiffin wanted to have an established guy when the season began. But I don't think he's seen the separation that he needs to go, this is my guy. And I know he's kind of pushed back about the idea of, well, we're going to play them both. And you even kind of pushed back when I mentioned that earlier in the week, Bork. You're like, I don't think he wants to do that. I don't think he wants to do that. But if there's no separation or no consistent separation between those two guys, what does it hurt to run them both out under the lights to see what they look like in a game setting, to see how their teammates respond to them when there are tens of thousands of people in the stands? What does that hurt?
Nothing. But, I mean, if they are absolutely 100% equal, then that creates an interesting dynamic, and I guess that's what you got to do, right? But something that I've been thinking about, too, is experience within the program. Now, it's a different offensive coordinator, but when all the players are talking about how they're more comfortable in the system because they've been in it for more than a year or whatever, then that tells you that it's not very different, that the offense is largely the same and they're going to use similar terminologies and all that. So even though it's Charlie Weiss instead of Levy, the way they're talking doesn't sound like it's any different. One of them enrolled in school basically on February 1st, and the other has been with the program for over a year, was behind Matt Corral for a year, was in the system, was with the team, was with the program. And if that one hasn't separated from the other, who started spring practice 2 weeks or 3 weeks after joining the program, doesn't that lead you to believe that, I guess that's what they have to wrestle with, is why hasn't the one that's been here longer separated? When he's been in the system, he's been in the locker room with the team. The guys know him. He knows our system, and yet no separation.
Yeah, but he wasn't the guy. He wasn't the guy, though, right?
But still.
Yeah, but still. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but, and my goodness, I hate doing this because it's so long ago and it's such a different level. But when I was a junior in high school and was the backup quarterback, I wasn't nearly as ready as when I was a senior in high school and was taking all the first-team reps every day in practice to get ready for – I think that's a different situation.